If it's Thursday, Nikki Haley focuses on the frontrunner, painting former President Trump as a liar and a loser as she tries to close the gap in New Hampshire with just 5 days to go and her campaign on the line. Plus, a Justice Department investigation finds critical failures and life-threatening delays in the law enforcement response to the shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas, where 19 children and 2 adults were killed. And set for liftoff, all eyes are on the Kennedy Space Center for a historic mission that's set to launch later this hour. We'll bring you those out-of-this-world pictures live from the launch pad. Welcome to Meet the Press Now. I'm Kristen Welker. We are just 5 days out from the New Hampshire primary and perhaps 5 days out from the last real competitive contest in the Republican presidential primary. New polls out today have Nikki Haley trailing former President Trump in New Hampshire by double digits. Haley was much closer to Trump in the polls this time last week. With so much on the line for her campaign, Haley appears to be trying to appeal more to the middle, setting her sights on the moderates that make up an outsized chunk of the New Hampshire primary electorate.
Over 70% of Americans don't want a Trump-Biden rematch. The majority of Americans disapprove of Biden and Trump. The majority of Americans don't want to see 2 80-year-olds battling it out for president. He threw a temper tantrum last night. He's doing other things to attack me, but he won't get in front of me and answer the questions. I mean, look, I voted for Trump twice. I agree with a lot of his policies. I've said it over and over again. Rightly or wrongly, chaos follows him.
Now, Haley says she wants to move on from Trump's chaos, but she's not spelling out for voters what that chaos is exactly. She's also telling voters she won't resort to personal attacks against the former president.
You know, people either want me to hate Trump or love Trump. That's not what it is. I just tell it on policy. I'm not going to talk about him personally. I don't care about that. I think politics is too personal, and I think that's why people are so frustrated right now.
Notably, both Haley and DeSantis have been relatively silent on Trump's outburst in a Manhattan courtroom yesterday after a jury found him liable for sexually assaulting and defaming writer Eugene Carroll. Haley hasn't brought up Mr. Trump's many other legal problems either, other than calling them a distraction. She also hasn't leaned in on Trump's continued claims of absolute presidential immunity, including a social media post this morning where he said that presidents should be allowed to, quote, cross the line without legal consequences. At the same time, the former president is unloading on Haley in New Hampshire, mocking the ethnic origins of her name, attacking her as a globalist rhino, and dismissing her strength in general election polling against President Biden. Take a look.
A vote for Nikki Haley this Tuesday is a vote for Joe Biden and a Democrat Congress this November, because that's what's going to happen. But if she wins, Biden wins, and I'm telling you that, and that's why they're sending all of these Democrats in to run, and it's crazy.
Now, Mr. Trump made that argument despite having lost the House, the Senate, and the presidency during his term. Here's Haley's response to that today.
Trump says things. Americans aren't stupid to just believe what he says. The reality is, who lost the House for us? Who lost the Senate? Who lost the White House? Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. Nikki Haley will win every single one of those back for us.
Bottom line, time is running short for both Haley and DeSantis, and New Hampshire could be their last stand after Trump's landslide victory in Iowa. Because if the field can't beat him with conservatives like those in Iowa or moderates like those in New Hampshire, there's a strong argument to be made that they can't beat him, period. NBC's Ali Vitale is following the Haley campaign in New Hampshire. NBC's Garrett Hake is following the Trump campaign in New Hampshire. And NBC's Steve Kornacki is, of course, at the big board for us for a closer look at the New Hampshire electorate. Ali, I have to start with you. Nikki Haley has added a couple of extra events today as we look forward to Tuesday's primary. She's added a little bit more tougher attacks against Trump. What are you hearing from her today, and what is her closing strategy, Ali?
You know, Christian, what's so striking is the closing strategy is clearly one where Haley recognizes she has to go through her former boss to get to the nomination that he's now likely standing in line for. But the way that she's doing it hasn't really changed, except for the fact that when Haley brings up Donald Trump now, what she does is really lump him together with President Joe Biden. There are a lot of refrains of Trump and Biden, Biden and Trump, trying to put them together in the minds of voters. But what's striking is the fact that Haley says she's going to attack him on policy, despite the fact that she agrees with most of the policy proposals that he put forward when he was president, which really only leaves the personal, which she also says is off the table. What's left then is asking her about court cases and the 91 criminal indictment counts that he's currently facing. But I also asked her today, if he's found guilty on any of those counts, does that still mean that he's qualified to be president, which an overwhelming number of Iowa caucus goers said they thought he was? Watch what she told me.
I trust the American people. Do you think the American people are going to vote for someone who's been convicted? Do you think the American people are going to make that decision? I'm going to beat him so we don't have to ever deal with, are we going to elect a convicted felon? What I want to do is beat him so that that's never an opportunity.
Here's the thing. You can look at that two ways, Kristen. On the one hand, she dodged and asked if the American people were going to vote for someone who's been convicted on criminal counts. The reality is Iowa voters seem to have entertained that possibility and still voted for him anyway. And I recognize that we're only talking about a very small subset of a party in a small state compared to the rest of the electorate in a would-be general election. Haley's probably right to call this out as a tougher general election issue, but you don't get to the general without making it through the primary. And it's clear that she's not looking to go at him in any sharper or more direct of a fashion. And that does sort of leave us where we've been this whole time.
You're absolutely right, Allie, and what's so extraordinary, of course, is that anti-Trump Republicans want to see Nikki Haley, want to see Ron DeSantis sharpen their attacks, sharpen their knives. They wanted that to happen months ago. Talk about the expectations game, Allie, because as you know, so much of these individual states are about playing the expectations game. Governor Sununu, who you saw standing there next to Nikki Haley, last week was very bullish, saying that she was going to win in a landslide.
Yeah.
Now, not really saying that, is he?
Now a win is second place for Governor Sununu. And if you listen to the way that Nikki Haley is setting these expectations as well, it's clear they're not saying that this is a must win. They're saying it's a must do better in New Hampshire than we did in Iowa. Again, better in New Hampshire than in Iowa means coming in second. That's not what the expectation game was, even when we were on the ground in Iowa last week. Now that I think they're here, I think they're realizing that it's still fertile ground, but maybe not as fertile as they were hoping it was.
Yeah, the polls, the margins are getting even wider. It's becoming more uphill for Nikki Haley. There's no doubt about that. Let's turn to Garrett Hake, also on the ground in New Hampshire. Garrett, you have been crisscrossing all of these battleground states. And of course, we did play a little bit of Trump's event last night in New Hampshire. Talk about his strategy in New Hampshire as compared to Iowa. What are the differences you're seeing there?
Well, Kristen, the Trump campaign has a blueprint for how they win in New Hampshire in 2024, and it's largely how they won in New Hampshire in 2016. There, as now, they were facing a moderate alternative. In that case, it was John Kasich, and a sort of stubborn conservative who was still in the race but not expected to perform pretty well in New Hampshire. In that case, it was Ted Cruz. Here you have Ron DeSantis, who is still campaigning somewhat in New Hampshire despite polling in the single digits here. That was a race Donald Trump won by 20 points. Now, they understand that a couple of things have broken Nikki Haley's way in recent weeks, namely the departure of Chris Christie from this race and the fact that Ron DeSantis, many of whose voters would probably go to Trump if he got out, is still staying in. Those are things that could help Haley, but they still feel like they have an overwhelming advantage with the base of the party, that despite Nikki Haley's appeal to more moderate, more likely to be unaffiliated voters, core Republicans, what is left of core Republicans in 2024, are MAGA Republicans, and they're going to come out for their guy. Now, the former president's been very aggressive on the campaign trail, you mentioned last night, but also on the airwaves here, either he or his super PAC, basically on the air constantly for the last 2 weeks, attacking Haley specifically on the issue of immigration, but also on Social Security, two issues that have played big here for as long as I've been covering politics. And if they think they can just sort of keep her essentially where she is, let her have a strong second place, a clear second place, but if it's 15 to 20 points back, that's the pathway to the nomination for Donald Trump. They'd take that any day day of the week from now through Super Tuesday, and probably end up being the nominee shortly thereafter.
Yeah, it's a really important point. Garrett, obviously we've been doing a lot of reporting and tea leaf reading about who Mr. Trump might be eyeing for his potential VP nominee. If, in fact, he does win the nomination, Elise Stefanik was on Meet the Press. I pressed her on whether she would say yes, and she certainly did not say no. J.D. Vance, another person who's been getting a lot of attention in this space, they're going to be out in New Hampshire stumping for President Trump. Former President Trump, what are you hearing about their chances of potentially being his nominee?
Look, these are names that definitely come up, Kristen. I think when you talk to the Trump campaign, when I talk to their allies, there's an agreement that this is very early for this kind of conversation, although it does speak to the lead that he already seems to be building in this race and the sort of thinking that he may become the inevitable nominee. We both know from covering Donald Trump for a long time there are certain things that he's going to prioritize. Among the highest on that list is loyalty. Both of the people who you've mentioned, J.D. Vance and Elise Stefanik, are people who have made that loyalty to Donald Trump very clear. They checked that box, and now the campaign will have a chance to evaluate them on the stump this week.
They sure will. All right, Garrett Haake, Ali Vitale, thanks so much for your fantastic reporting and for braving the cold for us. I will be there in New Hampshire with you all shortly. Steve, let me head over to you. Warm and cozy at the big board, but doing 24/7 work nonetheless. Steve, what are the key numbers, figures that you measures that you're looking at in New Hampshire?
Yeah, well, I think it just speaks to what you're talking about in Nikki Haley's strategy to try to get an upset win in New Hampshire. What it depends on is how different the New Hampshire Republican primary electorate is from what we just saw in Iowa. So check this out. Here is putting some numbers on how different it is. Let's just tick through them here. In Iowa, just this past Monday, a majority, 55% of the Republican electorate, evangelical Christian. In New Hampshire, it's one of the most secular Republican primary electorates in the country, just a quarter. The independent factor, look at that. The last time around in New Hampshire, this is 2016, 42%, more than 4 in 10 Republican primary participants were independents. They weren't Republicans. They were independents. That number was only 16 in Iowa. Moderates, look at this, 9% in Iowa, triple that number in New Hampshire. Suburbanites, we saw Nikki Haley do so well in the suburbs of Des Moines. In suburban areas in Iowa, there's a lot more of suburbia in New Hampshire than there is in Iowa. And even younger voters here, under 45, it's 23% in the caucuses in Iowa. It's about a third in the New Hampshire primary. So it's sort of a night and day difference in terms of the electorates. Also, just in terms of the number of people that turn out, here are the raw numbers for turnout, Iowa versus New Hampshire. But the key thing to keep in mind here is Iowa is twice the size of New Hampshire. It's twice as big, and yet look at the turnout in these primaries. Typically, New Hampshire, is doubling up Iowa, at least in its turnout. So it just speaks to the astronomically high turnout that they get in New Hampshire presidential primaries. It's just so part of the state's political culture. You get that turnout, and a big reason for that turnout is independents. They can vote in either party's primary, and boy, do they. Look at this, just going back 2016 to 2000 here on the Republican side. This is the share of the electorate, each of these primaries that independents made up on the Republican side. And you can see the rule kind of is you win the independents in New Hampshire, you win the primary. And if there's one of these that Nikki Haley's looking at in particular, it's John McCain back in 2000. Because, look, John McCain didn't just win independents. He got 61%. He beat George W. Bush by 42 points among independents. That is what powered McCain's statewide victory. Haley's got to roll up a margin kind of like that if she's going to have a chance against Trump. And just take a look. You put the poll on the screen. The latest traffic tracking poll from Suffolk University has Haley down 14. It does have her ahead with independents by a healthy margin. But again, if she's going to win New Hampshire, that's got to get even bigger for her.
That is so fascinating when you put it in that context, Steve. And I will be joining you in New York next week for the New Hampshire primary. We'll be breaking down all of these numbers together. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And joining me now for more insight on what to expect in the New Hampshire primary is James Pindell, political reporter for the Boston Globe. James, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate having your expertise today.
Of course. Thanks for asking me.
So before we get to the independents, which I do want to talk about, I want to delve into the independents, but
good.
I just want to get your big picture take right now on the state of this race, because Nikki Haley, a week ago, if we'd been having this conversation, was in striking distance of former President Trump. Today, boy, it looks a lot more uphill for her, James.
That's right. Typically, the Iowa caucus winner gets about an 8-point bump, and we've seen that with Donald Trump in terms of he is getting obviously much more of a polling bump. The question here is, do we even have a New Hampshire primary? So for Nikki Haley, it's not so much that I do need to convince them to vote for her. She needs to convince a lot of these independent voters in particular to even care about this contest. They're less likely to vote than even hardcore Republicans right now.
Well, okay, so let's talk about independents, because you saw Steve Kornacki lay out the margins. He said she's got a healthy lead over Trump when it comes to independents, but she needs even more. So do you anticipate they're going to get out and vote? And what about Christie's supporters? Because a majority of them said they would vote for Nikki Haley, but it's about actually taking that step and getting out and casting your ballot.
Yeah, one thing I don't think the national context really quite grasped that voters here in New Hampshire have lately is that this is just a two-person contest. It actually is the binary contest in New Hampshire, with Ron DeSantis moving on to South Carolina. So for those Chris Christie voters that I talk to, they feel like Nikki Haley's not exactly their cup of tea, but Donald Trump definitely is not. So they have nowhere else to go. And if you saw those numbers from Steve Kornacki, there was 1 year on that chart that stood out, and that's 2012. And that's important because 2012 did not have a Democratic contest because Barack Obama was running for re-election. Therefore, the independents were even higher, 46%. They're expected to be about 50% this time around. That is important, but there's one other thing that we have to talk about. If Nikki Haley wants to follow the John McCain model, there's two pieces of information that seem to have slipped her mind. Number one, John McCain didn't just crush independents. He actually was up 6 points among Republicans, beating George W. Bush. Nikki Haley's nowhere near that. And second, John McCain was everywhere. He was on the hustings. In 69 days, 114 town meetings. Nikki Haley is having one rally every single day and maybe one sort of photo op as she did earlier today. That is not the New Hampshire underdog spirit that I think I'm definitely hearing from a lot of Nikki Haley supporters right now. They're kind of upset about it. They want her to get out there more and to campaign more and to earn it.
Yeah, I'm hearing that too, James. That's such an important point. I'm so glad you bring that up. Very quickly, we only have about 30 seconds left. Obviously, Trump has just been pummeling Governor Sununu for endorsing Nikki Haley. Could that hurt Republicans in November in the state?
Maybe, though I must say Donald Trump has, as Chris Sununu said, been an anchor on Republicans here. They do not have any of the federal races where this is a swing state. The races for Congress, the races for Senate are usually very competitive, but Trump has been a huge factor since he was first elected in 2016, and for that reason, Donald Trump not the nominee would be a bigger thing, a good thing for Republicans than him being the nominee.
Fascinating stuff, James. Let's stay in close touch as we get closer to Tuesday. Really appreciate your joining us. And we will have special coverage of the New Hampshire primary race starting at 6 p.m. Eastern next Tuesday, right here on NBC News Now. And up next, a devastating report from the Department of Justice indicating that a cascading series of failures from law enforcement likely cost children their lives in the mass shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. We'll delve into the details. You're watching Meet the Press now. Welcome back. More than a year and a half after the tragic shooting in Uvalde, Texas, that left 2 teachers and 19 elementary school students dead, today the Department of Justice released a scathing report describing several critical failures in the law enforcement response. The 600-page report details how officers waited more than an hour before engaging the shooter, as well as major incidents of miscommunication, including families receiving incorrect information that their family member had survived the mass shooting when they had not. Attorney General Merrick Garland was in Uvalde to announce some of the key findings of that report.
As a consequence of failed leadership, training, and policies, injured and scared students and teachers remain trapped with the subject in the classrooms waiting to be rescued. Law enforcement response at Robb Elementary School on May 24th, 2022, and in the hours and days after, was a failure that should not have happened.
NBC News Justice and Intelligence reporter Ken Delaney is in Uvalde, Texas. Ken, just an incredibly difficult time for this community receiving the details of this report. What stood out to you about this report and what we heard from the Attorney General?
Well, the biggest takeaway, Kristen, is the Attorney General and the report really connected the dots between the inadequate, horrifically inadequate police response and a loss of life. Essentially, what Merrick Garland said was that it's very likely that more of those children could have been saved had the police simply done what decades of active shooter protocol calls for, which is to immediately respond to take out the shooter. And the report is very clear that those police officers put their own safety ahead of the safety of those children. Now, that's not new. We've known about that. But this report really goes into meticulous detail on all the leadership failures that were involved in that failure to act and all the evidence that the police officers, the commanders on scene had that there were wounded children dying in that room, and yet they still didn't go in. But then it goes further to talk about, as you said, the failures after the incident in medical triage, for example. So one of the teachers who died was simply dragged out onto a walkway and left and didn't receive medical care and died. And it's unclear whether medical care could have saved her life. And then there was, as you said, parents whose children survived were told that they died and vice versa. So it was a disaster all the way around, a failure at every level, Kristen.
It's so hard to hear and to read some of those details, Ken. And we know, and as you've been reporting on, a lot of the families have been calling for accountability. How does this report fit into their demands for accountability? Is there a sense that more people could be held responsible for this disastrous response?
So some of the family members that I spoke to are a little bit disappointed that this report, while it does point fingers at certain decision makers, for example, it doesn't name anyone under the commander level. And there was one mom in particular, Kimberly Mata Rubio, who was annoyed about that and spoke out about it. I think we have sound of her. Take a listen.
These officers who sit there and just not do anything, you know, and still be out here, you know, on the streets like nothing happened, you know. And my daughter's gone. It's hard.
I don't understand why they are allowed privacy. My child, their children, they are named in this report because they are dead. Everybody should have been named.
And so, look, the report is very critical, and it names names, particularly, you remember Pete Arredondo, the supposed on-scene commander. But there's a lot of other responsible parties that are not named. They're just identified by rank. And so this isn't really an accountability exercise. There's an ongoing criminal investigation here by the DA that some families hope could result in criminal charges, but most experts say that's a long shot, Kristen.
Ken Delaney, and breaking down all of the incredibly painful details of that report for us. Ken, thank you so much for your reporting. Really appreciate it. Coming up next, a vote for new moms. Meet the bipartisan pair of female lawmakers pushing to change how Congress treats new mothers. We'll explain. You're watching Meet the Press now. Welcome back. There is a new push on Capitol Hill to break down barriers for elected officials who are also new mothers. A bipartisan group of Congress members held a press conference today urging the House to change the rules so new moms in Congress can vote by proxy for 6 weeks after giving birth. NBC's Julie Tsirkin sat down with two of the members leading the effort about why it's so important.
Typically, if you're in a normal workplace, you would have guidance, take maternity leave, whatever it might be. There's nothing like that exists for members of Congress that are women. So I basically asked, they told me that I couldn't vote, which I also didn't know was a thing. And so when I had my baby, it was a pretty rough recovery. And so I couldn't come back right away. And there was obviously a lot happening on the Hill. And so I just wanted to make sure that this was, one, put down on paper so that there's some guidance for other members that have kids after me. And also, too, I just don't think it's fair to remove moms from the conversation. I can't help having a baby. It's a part of my life, and so I shouldn't be discriminated against because of it.
You're both 34. You are pretty young when it comes to the average age of a congressperson, which is like 58. Congresswoman Jacobs, you don't have kids yet, but that's something that you want to do, right? So how is this bill going to enable you to make that kind of decision?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first got elected to Congress at 31, I decided to freeze my eggs because I knew that, especially representing California, I fly at least 10 hours round trip, at least 2 or 3 times a month, that, I want to have kids one day, but in the immediate, it wasn't really going to be feasible. And I wanted to preserve that option for me to be able to make that decision when I was ready. And I'll be honest, this institution was designed by old men for old men. And there really aren't anything in place to help support so many of us younger members. And I think it's important that we have more young people, that we have more parents who are in office, because we just have different issues we're dealing with, and we need to make sure that Congress is addressing those issues as well.
Congresswoman Luna, you came into office last year as a freshman. It was certainly a lot of drama on the floor. You had the speaker election. You had a lot of other things happening. But one of the first items that Republicans tackled was getting rid of proxy voting. What was it about becoming a mother that made you think, okay, maybe we need to bring some of that back for mothers?
Yeah, I think as a first-time freshman, there's a lot that you don't fully understand of how the institution works. And so a lot of it you're just kind of expected to learn on your own, which I have done the due diligence for that. And I will admit that I think that that is a mistake, because what you're essentially doing is you're preventing female members from, one, not just having children, but also, two, you're basically saying you have to choose between your career and your family. And I don't think that that's, especially in this day and age, something that members should be forced to choose and really pick and choose between. But I also think that if we're talking about really the platforms of both parties, you have my party that promotes family values and, motherhood, and then you have the Democrat Party that promotes, women empowerment. And I think that for both parties to condemn this or work against it is somewhat hypocritical.
You are the first to introduce something on this issue. You've had other members who've had other medical issues, who've wanted the ability to use proxy voting in those cases. Is this something that you would like to see expanded to cover more of those issues?
I think for this specifically, the reason it's written as such is because this is just the one topic that we're choosing to address. But, I mean, every Congress sets its own House rules. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming, because of those discussions, that this is probably going to be addressed next Congress as well. And
with this bill, one of the things you both keep bringing up is we want to be able to attract fresh blood, younger members, bring some more. I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this just, being in Congress for a couple of years, just how archaic everything seems. What kind of message do you hope that this legislation sends?
I would say, we actually work on a number of issues together, and, we are very different ideologically. We believe different things about a lot, but there are so many areas that we also find common ground just because we are young women and we have that similarity, that I think the more we have young people in office, the more we have different kinds of people, you'll be able to see those different kinds of coalitions, and we'll be able to get more done.
What a fascinating conversation. Joining me now with her latest reporting is NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Tsirkin. Julie, I just want to thank you for shining a light on this. What an important topic, and how important to hear from those lawmakers who are pushing for this new legislation. What else were your other key takeaways from your discussions?
Yeah, Kristen, I mean, it's not often you see somebody like Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who is certainly a Republican firebrand. She's a huge supporter of the former president, and seated next to Sarah Jacobs, who is a young member, a member of Democratic leadership, also a progressive from California, and yet they found so much in common just on this issue. I found it so interesting that Congresswoman Luna seemed to give way, to open the door to perhaps tackling more paid family leave policies. This is something that we hear Democrats beating the drum on all the time, but Luna seemed to suggest that this practice, not only would it be beneficial in the halls of Congress, she often brings her 4-month-old baby boy Henry around, but also expanded to other businesses, other governments, other places where so many working moms are dealing with the same issue and don't have a paid leave policy in place.
Well, it's just an absolutely fascinating conversation. Very quickly, Julie, where do you see this going? Do you think there's enough support for the legislation they're proposing to allow Congress to vote by proxy? Is there enough support for it to pass? What's your sense?
Well, this is what's so interesting. Luna had said that she actually approached leadership at the time. Of course, it was then Speaker Kevin McCarthy before she had her baby. She's like, listen, I'm going to be out in a couple of weeks. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I asked her yesterday if she believes that the new Speaker, Mike Johnson, who she did talk to as well, would be open to this. It's not clear if they would be because, of course, there are some political hesitations when it comes to proxy voting, a pandemic-era policy that Republicans have said Pelosi and Democrats have abused. But certainly it's interesting this conversation is happening. And Luna said she's not going to stop trying.
It's a fascinating conversation. Thank you for bringing it to us, Julie Tsirkin. We really appreciate it. Great stuff as always. And still to come with a live look at the launch pad. A 4-person crew aboard a SpaceX rocket is set to make some history just moments from now. We are blasting off after the break. You're watching Meet the Press now. Welcome back. As we mentioned earlier, Nikki Haley is using some of her strongest language yet to go after Donald Trump in these final days before the New Hampshire primary. It comes as one of her key supporters in the Granite State, Governor Chris Sununu, is also going after the former president in a new ad. Take a look.
There are now only 2 candidates who can win. One is surrounded by chaos and drama. That's the Donald Trump we all know. The other is honest and hopeful. That's Nikki Haley. She campaigned the New Hampshire way, and now we have a chance to reset the election for our entire country. Nikki is the only one who can beat Donald Trump to move America forward.
I'm joined now by my fantastic panel, Washington Bureau Chief for Semaphore, Benjy Sarlin, Washington Post columnist and NBC News political analyst Eugene Robinson, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute and an NBC News contributor, Danielle Pletka, and former Republican Governor of North Carolina, Pat McCrory, who's now a national co-chair of No Labels. Thanks to all of you for being here. A lot to discuss. Benjy, let me start with you. Where are we in New Hampshire? Because Nikki Haley, last week, if we'd been having this conversation, was in striking distance of former President Trump. Now it's looking pretty uphill for her.
Well, the big hope for Nikki Haley was always that she would come out of Iowa with clear momentum and a clear shot at Donald Trump, meaning she had eliminated Ron DeSantis, ideally. That didn't quite happen because she did not manage to come in second in Iowa, but she does kind of have a clear shot at Trump, and that DeSantis in polls at least seems to be totally irrelevant over there. And his campaign is already starting to look towards South Carolina. They don't see a lot of their voters in New Hampshire. But the polling so far shows that, yes, Nikki Haley has improved her position a little bit, but so is Donald Trump, possibly the point where he is getting out of reach. So this could potentially be the last real competitive race.
Danny, pick up on that point. First of all, the ad that you just saw, is that a compelling argument? And second of all, if Trump wins, is this game over? What does it mean?
So I think it's New Hampshire that's really the question. I grew up in Massachusetts. New Hampshire people are different.
Lots of independents, lots of moderates.
Exactly. Live free or die.
Right, there you go.
And people like that can surprise you. There are a lot of independents. There are a lot of people who just see the world in a different way than, well, I did in Boston. In any case, I think that's where her opportunity is. Sununu is a very popular governor, but she does have to do well in New Hampshire.
I mean, Eugene, to that point, she has the support of the governor. If he can't help her, and he did, it seems like give her a boost initially, but where has the momentum gone?
Well, right. Well, didn't DeSantis have the support of the governor in Iowa?
Good point.
I mean, that's not dispositive. No, that was not a great result for her in Iowa. She didn't get any momentum, as Benjy said. And so I don't know, let's suppose she overperforms in New Hampshire, but loses to Trump. What next? She's not going to do anything in Nevada.
Yeah.
I don't think she's going to do anything in South Carolina. That's where I'm from, and all I'm hearing is Trump.
Yeah. Pat, I want to talk about No Labels, but first I do want to get your take on the state of the race in New Hampshire, because you have Nikki Haley. vying to win, but also Chris Sununu saying, hey, if she comes in second place, that's a win. What do you make of it?
Well, I competed with Nikki when I was governor of North Carolina, and she was governor of South Carolina, and one of her great strengths is strategy, and she can adapt very quickly, and it's obvious to me she's adapted in New Hampshire, going after Trump much stronger than she was earlier, especially in the Iowa campaign. She has nothing to lose in attempting to do that. So that's her great strength. It could be a weakness, too, at the same time, as all of us. Her strength is her weakness. Yeah. Her problems, I think, South Carolina, the base of the Carolinas, we're next door. The base of Trump is, believe me, I learned in a Senate campaign, yes, the base of, that's the one endorsement that makes a difference. And that's going to be the major challenge, is her home state. Yeah. Well, and the current governor is against her.
Exactly.
And the only reason he's in office is because
Trump has a big lead in South Carolina.
Nikki Haley becoming UN ambassador.
I mean, so talk about South Carolina for a minute, Eugene. I mean, here you have Trump, who has a lead there. Ron DeSantis competing in South Carolina. I mean, this is her home state.
This is her home state, and if you lose your home state, that's a really, really bad look. You know, and it could end that campaign. I'm probably going to go down to South Carolina for actually both the Democratic and the Republican primaries, even though the Democratic is not really contested, and I think I know who's going to win on the Republican side. But I'm curious about that. Yeah. I'm also curious to just sort of gauge Democratic base enthusiasm for President Biden. So it's a base place, kind of.
But we've said, Nikki Haley is adaptable, and I think she's a shrewd and a smart woman, quick off the bat. But it is so weird to me that all of Trump's obvious weaknesses have not been part of her sale. Okay, in Iowa, all right. But he's going to be a one-term president if he wins. If he wins. Is that what we want? 4 years and then a Democrat?
Benjy, what about that? Why is she not making that argument? And why doesn't she have more events scheduled in New Hampshire?
Well, some of that's for personal reasons. She had to go back to South Carolina to look after a sick parent. But that is an interesting thing about the event side. Now, one thing that's interesting, this is an attack that DeSantis has been making on her a lot. Nikki Haley has had a bit of a bubble wrap approach. Even as she's often, she'll get derided as like, oh, the media favorite by a DeSantis or a Trump. But she doesn't actually do a lot of media. She doesn't take a lot of questions. She's been doing kind of short, quick events in New Hampshire. It's been a cycle in which the normal style of campaigning, where you just get yourself out, talk to everyone, voters and press alike, has been kind of challenged a lot in multiple ways.
Let's talk about No Labels. Pat, your fellow No Labels co-chair, former Senator Joe Lieberman, seemed open to Nikki Haley potentially running on his ticket if he were to run. Take a look at what he said.
If Governor Haley does not succeed in obtaining the Republican nomination for president, and she declares any interest in being part of our bipartisan unity ticket, I'm sure people in No Labels would give that the most serious consideration. But obviously she's not done that now because she's an active Republican candidate for president.
So how seriously is No Labels looking at Haley, potentially Chris Christie? And is this a sign No Labels is definitely going to run someone?
It looks, the indications are that Biden and Trump will be the final candidates after Super Tuesday. And if that's the case, No Labels will run someone. And right now we're getting on the ballots in states throughout the nation. We've got a coordinated effort to do just that. Today we asked the Justice Department to investigate some more left-wing groups who are trying to sabotage, intimidate, threaten supporters of No Labels. And I don't agree with that, whether the right or left do it. In this case, the left's doing it. As No Labels gets even stronger in red states, it might happen from the right. But we are drawing the line in the sand and saying this is unconstitutional, and you cannot intimidate voters or people attempting to get on the ballot.
Benjy, put that into context. Why the backlash on the left? Clearly they're concerned about Biden's reelection if there were a third-party candidate.
I mean, Democrats have internalized the idea that third parties help Trump, period. I mean, that's what happened in 2016. It wasn't a huge turnout for third parties, But, you know, going into it, it was ambiguous who might benefit. And afterwards, it was pretty clearly that it was depressed Clinton supporters who switched over. No labels obviously has them worried, just as Cornel West does, just as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. does. It's all very unpredictable. And it's especially unpredictable when the candidates you're considering have wildly divergent views. I mean, Manchin versus Haley on abortion, say, the most important issue voters are talking about. What is the platform?
We have a very serious platform of over 30 items, which we've developed and come out with, and it's the American people's platform of results. And right now, 65% of the people don't want either Trump or Biden.
What about
What's
that, Eugene?
the position on abortion, though, as Benjy?
It's basically a position of going, there's a reasonable time period in which you shouldn't have an abortion, and it's what the American people are saying. I haven't got the booklet right in front of me.
Sure, is it 15 weeks?
It's 15 to 20 weeks.
15
yeah.
Danny,
15
what's
to
your
20 weeks,
what's your
which is what the
reaction
American
to-
people are saying.
Well, the American people actually have said they want an underlying
And by the
constitutional
way,
right.
on issues like immigration, on
Are you going
issues
to
like
talk about abortion and leave the women out?
We have said no. We're going to give you the final word. We have 30 seconds. Go for it, Danny.
Actually, the United States should be in line with every other country in the world. There is a limit. I don't think the Constitution is the question. So I think why can't we just be normal?
Absolutely.
That if
What
no
about
labels
no
offers
labels
that,
then?
yay.
We have a common sense on immigration, on social issues, and we're proud of it.
Well, I'm going to bring you all back to continue this because there's so much more to discuss in that space. Thank you for a great conversation. Benjy Sarlin, Eugene Robinson, Danielle Pletka, and Pat McCrory. Really great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to turn now to some breaking news happening live at the Kennedy Space Center. This is the live feed from NASA TV and Axiom Space as final preparations are underway ahead of the first crewed mission of 2024. In just a few moments, Axiom Space's third private astronaut mission will take off for a 14-day trip to the International Space Station. The four-person crew will lift off aboard a SpaceX's Falcon 9 rocket. The launch was originally scheduled for yesterday, but had to be scrubbed due to the need for additional, quote, data analysis. Joining me now as we wait for the launch is NBC News correspondent Marissa Para and former NASA astronaut Mike Massimino. Thanks so much to both of you. Marissa, let's start with you. What makes today's launch so historic and important?
Yeah, well, I'll get to that in just a moment. If you see me glancing over my shoulder, I'm looking at the countdown clock. We're a minute and 20 seconds out. I'm just not too far away from historic pad 39A. We are getting closer and closer. I've got one eye and one ear listening to mission control in Hawthorne, Texas. And as soon as we hear interesting developments, I'm going to let you take a listen for yourself because we are getting closer, a minute and 3 seconds away. And you're going to hear those final pre-launch checks in just a moment. And I'm listening right now. Take a listen.
There's that
Dragon is in countdown.
confirmation that Falcon 9 is in startup and Dragon is in countdown, which means that the vehicles are now controlling the final seconds as we lead up to liftoff.
Kristen, there's a couple of firsts here. Turkey is sending their first astronaut, Alper Izirace. We are getting closer and closer.
From our flight
and we're
director.
hearing we are go for launch. That is coming from Hawthorne, Texas there, Kristen.
All right,
we're going to catch you on the other end of this, and we're
listen-
going to be hearing the ground shake in just a moment.
Great, Marissa, fantastic stuff. We're going to pause so we can listen to mission control and so that we can all watch this launch together. And Mike, I'll get your reaction on the other side.
T-minus 15. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Engine full power. And liftoff. Go
Further beyond, opening the door for more to follow. Godspeed AX-3.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal.
Of course, if you are just joining us, this is the launch of the Axiom-3 launch to the International Space Station. Those incredible views on your screen, and there's our first shot of the AX-3 crew inside Dragon on ascent. Now, in just a few seconds here, we should hear the call out that Falcon 9...
power and telemetry. Stage 1 throttle down.
There's that call out that Falcon 9's engines are throttling down to help us pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure during ascent.
Max Q.
There's that call out for Max Q.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
And that Falcon 9 is going faster than the speed of sound. Now, at this point, we will begin to throttle Falcon 9's engines back up.
Stage 1 throttle up.
There's that call out for mission control as well, as our AX-3 crew continues on their way to space.
Okay. Well, the ground did shake. History was made. The third private mission to launch into space, heading to the International Space Station. You have been listening to the SpaceX broadcast team navigate and talk about what is happening. Mike, I want to bring you into this historic moment that we are watching. What are your thoughts as you watch Axiom-3 lift off?
Kristen, I'm really excited for my I wish I was there with them, by the way, but I'm really excited for the people on board. Mike Lopez Alegria, I've been friends with him for over 25 years. He's a former NASA astronaut, colleague and friend, a wonderful astronaut, great guy. Also, Walter Villaday, who's an Italian astronaut. I know him as well, and he's making his first trip to the space station. And I'm happy for the other astronauts in the countries of Sweden and Turkey. Turkey getting their first person into space. So it's pretty historic. But I'm just smiling. I'm still watching that rocket ship, though, Chris, and making sure it gets there. We still have a few more minutes to go until the main engine's cut off. But I'm very happy for them. I'm glad they're on their way.
Boy, Mike, you took the words right out of my mouth. We keep watching until they disappear into space. That is for sure. Yesterday, there was a planned launch that they scrubbed. They wanted to do more data analysis. Talk about the precision that goes into a moment like this when you have a manned spacecraft.
Yeah, people on board a crewed spacecraft is what's really important to that statement, because when you have people on board, you can't really have any mistakes. You want to make sure it's going to go well. And so even maybe for the slightest concern, you're going to hold off. And everything has to be timed right. You only have a certain window of time in order to launch effectively, and everything's got to work, and all your backup systems. It's not only getting to space, but if you have to protect against a possible abort or an emergency, you need all those conditions to be a go as well. So there's an awful lot of things that go into it besides just lighting the rocket engine.
And Mike, we just had stage separation. You saw the crew there cheering. That is when the spacecraft separates from the rocket. Talk about that moment, the significance of it, and then we'll get Marissa's view from the ground.
Well, that's a pretty big moment, because the first stage now is going to return back to the Earth. That all worked well. And the second engine that we see now, the second stage has lit. So they're on their way. Those are all good signs. And when you're sitting there watching, sitting there on your back, waiting for all these things to happen, you're kind of checking off each one of these milestones. You look at them as milestones. Engine cut off, engine relit for the next stage, and as you go and you get each one of these boundaries that you cross, each one of these milestones you check off, you're getting closer and closer to a successful launch.
Marissa, talk about what you just witnessed. What did it feel like? What did you see there from the ground? How extraordinary that you can be there in person.
Kristen, it never gets old. I am all smiles right now, and over my shoulder, what you can't see is a line of people who just watched this, and we could certainly feel the ground shake. I think everyone, of course, is monitoring those milestones. He just listed some of them. We certainly have that on our hands right now. We know there's a couple of notable moments that are supposed to happen about 8 minutes after liftoff. One of them is we're supposed to hear a sonic boom, and you can feel it. And every time that's happened, there's a parking lot over my shoulder. And the ironic and funny part here is that 8 minutes after liftoff is when we hear all the car alarms going off around us, because that's how intense it is. But then it's about 8 minutes and 48 seconds. It's called SECO. That is the second stage engine cutoff. And Tom Costello trained me well, Kristen. I know that is around the moment that everyone can kind of breathe a sigh of relief, because that is considered when they're entering the safer stage. But they're traveling so fast right now, on their way, faster than the speed of sound on their way to the International Space Station. And we know they'll be there for about 14 days. You asked what makes this so historic. It's not just the first crewed mission of this year. It's the first private European crewed mission into space. But this is one of a series of efforts to make space an inhabitable place long-term for humans. They've got a couple of really interesting experiments. One that I thought was interesting, not just looking at tumors in microgravity to allow us as humans to detect and prevent diseases like cancer in space, but also even the effect effects of microgravity on the way that food tastes. So again, bigger picture here, these little small launches are all part of a bigger effort to make space inhabitable for people like you and me, maybe one day in our lifetime.
Yeah, Marissa, I love that you invoke Tom Costello because we have all learned so much from him. It's
the expert himself.
The
yes.
expert himself, exactly. Mike, let me bring you back. Talk about what happens once this spacecraft lands. Marissa talked a little bit about some of what they will be looking for when they get to space. What are the big goals of this?
Well, after this, as Marissa described, that next engine's going to cut off. What we're seeing on the left, by the way, is the returning stage, the first stage returning back to Earth, which is pretty remarkable, too. And on the left, you're still seeing that engine, that second engine burn, that second stage burn. Once that cuts off, they will be in space. There'll be microgravity floating around. The next real big thing is going to be the rendezvous and docking with the space station on Saturday. And then they're going to get to work pretty much right away, getting adapted to being on the space station and starting to run some of those experiments that Marissa said. And this is a really cool mission, I think, too, that it's not just a bunch of billionaires flying in space and paying a lot of money. These are countries that have sponsored astronauts from their countries, the Italian Space Agency,
Mike, let me
Sweden,
interrupt you
and
quickly
Turkey as well.
because we have another stage of this. The rocket is about to re-land. Let's just take a look for a moment.
Landing. And if you couldn't tell by the loud cheers, we did stick.
STS is saved.
We did stick that landing. Falcon 9 has landed once again, but turning our attention back to the crew.
Mike, let me just bring you back. You just heard that voice from the SpaceX broadcast team say we stuck the landing. That was incredible.
It's amazing.
It didn't used to be that way. I mean, can you talk about, because it used to go back into the ocean, right? I mean, it didn't land in the same spot.
See this, it is amazing that they're able to fly that thing back and guide it back and hit that spot like you saw on land. They also can land it on a barge out in the middle of the ocean, that's floating around out there. They can do that as well. And what that does is it's brought down the cost of flying in space because it's totally reusable. It doesn't require a lot of fuel to fly it back, just a little bit of fuel. And it flies it back to the Kennedy Space Center. So you don't have to worry about sending a boatway out in the middle of the ocean like we had to do to return the rockets from the space station or from the space shuttle, or trek the rocket across to be repacked across the country on a train car. It's much different, a world we're living in now. It returns back to the Kennedy Space Center to be reused again. And that reusability and the efficiency of it is bringing down the cost of access to space.
It is just an incredible sight. And Mike, SpaceX has been building rockets for nearly 22 years. Is this the future? In other words, will all space travel be through private companies? Is that your anticipation?
It might. I don't know if it's just going to be SpaceX. I think there's a lot of other companies as well involved. Blue Origin's another one. There's a lot of smaller companies, too, that around the world are doing this. What we found is that, NASA years ago was thinking, how much demand do we need? I think they underestimated that because it's kind of like if you build it, they will come. There's more access. People are thinking of ways that they can do more things in space, whether it's research, sending people, tourism. So I think there's going to be a large demand. I don't think it's going to be any one supplier. I still want one. I think there's going to be many. And I think it's also going to be NASA, of course, the Space Launch System, for example, that's going to be sending astronauts to the moon, hopefully next year. I think that's all in play. But, yeah, I don't think it's not just governments anymore, for sure, Kristen. It's these private companies. I do think we're seeing not just the present, but we're also seeing the future. And I think that's the only way we're going to achieve these lofty goals that we have, because to rely on the taxpayer's dollar is not going to get you what you want. And to have these private companies involved, I think, is really critical, both for governments and for private enterprise.
All right. Well, just incredible. Marissa and Mike, thank you both so much for watching this historic launch of Axiom-3, again, the third private mission to launch to the International Space Station. It is well on its way. Extraordinary coverage to both of you. I will be back tomorrow with more Meet the Press Now, live from New Hampshire. NBC News Now coverage continues with my friend Hallie Jackson right now.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.